Hi, my name is Sarah Squires, and I will be talking about knee rehabilitation for grade 2 MCL sprain. So the MCL is one of the 4 stabilizing ligaments to the knee, and when you injure that, you're going to affect the stability of the whole joint itself. The MCL is connected from the medial tibial condyle to the medial femoral epicondyle up by your thigh. An MCL sprain is when the ligament gets stretched or torn, and there's different grades we'll talk about in a second. An MCL sprain happens from too strong of a valgus force, landing wrong from a jump, sharp change in direction, twisting motion, tackle, anything like that. A grade 2 MCL sprain is when the MCL is partially torn, and rehab usually lasts around 6 to 8 weeks, and sometimes longer or less. A grade 1 sprain you can see in the picture on the left has some small tears in it, mostly just stretching. Grade 2, what we're talking about, has a partial tear, and grade 3 is a complete tear. There are 3 tissue healing phases we need to be concerned about. That is the inflammatory response phase, fibroblastic repair phase, and maturation remodeling phase. In the picture on the left, we see an MCL that is injured, and then we see the first phase, which is clot formation, second phase where the collagen is laid down haphazardly, and the third phase where the collagen is laid down correctly and healed. So the inflammatory response phase begins immediately after injury and can last 3 to 4 days. This is when vasoconstriction happens, and then 5 to 10 minutes later vasodilation will happen. So that's where blood flow increases, then decreases, and edema is created. Metabolism at your knee joint will also increase at this time. It allows chemical mediators to come and help aid everything. Platelets and exudate will adhere to collagen, and that's how the clot is formed. The second phase is the fibroblastic repair phase, and this can last anywhere between 3 and 4 to 6 weeks. This is when capillary buds and granulation tissue form. The extracellular matrix is also formed at this time, and it helps give structure and organization to the cell. This is most importantly when collagen fibers get laid down randomly and haphazardly. So it's important to note that tensile strength is increased at this time, but it is still weaker than that of the maturation remodeling phase. The third phase is the maturation remodeling phase, and the most important thing is that the collagen fibers are now getting realigned, and this can take up to a year or more, but this is when the strength will be most. Next is the 4 rehab phases. So there's the acute inflammatory control phase, range of motion, strength and endurance, functional progression, and return to play. Common modalities that I'll be talking about during those phases are electrical stim, ultrasound, heat, and ice. So the first phase of rehabilitation is the acute inflammatory control phase, and during this phase we are in the inflammatory phase of the tissue healing process. The goal of this phase is to decrease pain and control swelling or edema. Different modalities we typically use are ice. We could use Game Ready, which is ice and compression, and electrical stim. Crutches maybe for a day or two to allow the inflammatory phase to really get working, or a brace for protection. But after that, we really want to start getting into some early range of motion and, some passive heel slides, some quad sets for extension, things like that. For pain control, NSAIDs, gait theory, which would be most of your modalities that I just mentioned. Before moving on to the next phase, we want to make sure that pain is manageable and swelling is minimal. And the remainder of the rehab phases, we also want to have general body conditioning throughout. We want to be able to return the athlete back to their sport being, in cardiovascular shape. The second phase of the rehab process is the range of motion phase. And in the tissue healing process at this time, we're usually in the fibroblastic repair phase. This is, when collagen is getting laid down haphazardly, so we want to remember that. The goal is to increase mobility and range of motion. Different modalities are heat, ultrasound, stem, ice, Game Ready, and whirlpools. When they come in, you might want to heat it up to help in the beginning, and then after going through treatment, you might want to ice them down if they're a little sore. For flexibility, joint mobilizations can help, patella glides, things like that. First part of the range of motion phase is PROM, which is passive range of motion. So that's doing heel slides, or it's doing quad sets or extension, or putting your foot on a towel or roller to really get your knee to drop completely straight. Isometrics are also helpful if you don't have full range of motion yet, holding a squat hold or a split squat hold just to keep those muscles around your knee joint moving. Active range of motion is the next after passive range of motion. So for that, you could start trying to bike halfway around, all the way around if you can. It's when we start doing short arc quad sets, long arc quad sets, and maybe some heel slides without the towel. Other exercises, you can do mini bodyweight squats, 4-way hip, you can do some single leg balance. So in the images, the person sitting in the chair, she's doing a long arc quad set. This picture is a short arc quad set, just lesser of range of motion. And then this guy up here is showing how to do heel slides passively with a towel. Down here is the 4-way hip, the 4 ways of motion you could go. And before moving on, we need to make sure that they have enough strength and controlled pain and swelling. The third phase of the rehab process is strength and endurance. So in this part, we were midway through the fibroblastic repair phase to the maturation remodeling phase in the tissue healing process. This is good to remember throughout. So the goal of this phase is to increase strength and endurance and to reestablish neuromuscular control. Modalities, again, when they come in, we could heat them up to help. We can do stem, and then afterwards we can do ice or game ready. If they're a little sore, it'll just help decrease swelling and pain overall. The exercises, we can start doing some resisted range of motion. We do total knee extensions with a band, like shown in this picture. He's straightening his leg from a bent position. We could do banded lateral walks. We could do some squats, some lunges, box step-ups with a knee drive. You could do single leg RDLs, some single leg squats and deadlifts. That also helps get, the hamstrings and quads, everything stronger around the knee joint. We could start doing progressive resistant exercises. So that is exercises that go, from body weight to lightweight to more weight, or easy movement patterns to more complicated movement patterns. Eccentric movements are also very important during this stage. That's slowly lowering your body down. It helps with strength and control of all those muscle groups. Neuromuscular control and proprioception is important to get back during this time. So in this picture, we have a soccer player balancing on an RX pad, and she is kicking the ball back, and she's using her injured leg is having to stabilize herself. Before moving on, we want to make sure that they have adequate strength and they have full range of motion and pain and swelling are still controlled. The fourth and last phase of the rehabilitation phases process is functional progressions and return to play. So we're in the maturation remodeling phase of the tissue healing process. The main goal is to, get the athlete back to their sport. Modalities, same as before. Heat, stem, ultrasound when they come in. Get them moving on a bike. Ice, game ready, or whirlpools afterwards. Help with swelling and pain and preventing all of that. Exercises at this time, we can start doing more weights like deadlifts, squats, lunges. Add in some sport-specific exercises. We can start doing plyometrics, double leg jumps, some single leg hops, some bounding drills. Agility is also good at this time. Get them doing some lateral walk, some speed drills or reactionary drills. Running progressions, to go from jogging to running to curves to figure eights to sprints, and then eventually back to cutting. Another way is build-up runs, which helps transition you into running. You're slowly accelerating every 10 yards until you hit the desired speed and then slowly decelerate. Sport-specific exercises are also very important at this stage. So, including a basketball, soccer ball, or other sports-related drills into their rehab process during this time. We could get a basketball player dribbling the ball as she runs or he runs, get a soccer player dribbling, things like that, and then return to play. So we want to make sure that they don't have any pain while doing these activities. We want to make sure they have full range of motion and strength is at least 90% of the other leg. We don't want to say like, oh, we think you're ready, let's put you back into play. We want to have some specific criteria to go off of. So we want to make sure that they're capable of performing the demands of their sport. We want to make sure strength, power, and endurance is strong enough like to protect the injured area from re-injury. We want to make sure that they have good neuromuscular control and they're capable or pretty close to cardiorespiratory endurance that they need to play in the sport. Want to make sure they meet the demands of their sport. We want to do some functional testing to see. We want to ask the athlete if a brace is needed. Sometimes they like to tape, sometimes they want to put a brace, when they initially start back into playing, kind of as a mental note, but also to protect that ligament from re-injury. And also want to make sure that mentally they're ready and they don't have fear. We can also implement a preventative program and conditioning to keep them, good and ready to play. And that is the rehab process of a grade 2 MCL sprain. Thank you.